Here's your smart fact of the day. Do you know that most of the French-speaking people do not live in France? French is the official language in 29 countries, which makes it the second most used official language behind English. And the 29 countries are in Africa and Canada and so many different other places, right? Welcome to Smarter with Sid. In this episode, I'm not going to give you a French lesson, but I'm going to talk about the benefits of learning a language that a lot of people in the world may be using. And is there some benefit that goes beyond just learning how to speak to somebody who speaks French? Let's go. Okay, first things first, on Smarter with Sid, what we try to do is become 1% smarter every day. Now, what does that mean? That means exploring the limits, whether, you are trying to figure out something for your body or something for your mind or something for your skills. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to actually learn a new language. Well, maybe not exactly completely learn a new language, because I'd learned French in school, the 8th, 9th, and 10th standards that you have a choice between languages. I had taken French and I kind of had studied, obviously, for the board exams, and I did pretty well. But clearly, over so many years, and I'm not going to tell you what my age is because my birthday is coming soon. Clearly, over the years, I had forgotten most of it. So again, on Smarter with Sid, what we tend to do is we tend to understand something first. Like, I would like to test something out first before recommending it to you. So one of the motivations that I had to learn French was to figure out, maybe sometime in the future, maybe, if things work out well, I would love to be in France and live a lot of my life over there. Yeah, it might be a pipe dream right now. Maybe it might be real after a little while. Who knows? So the choice was between French, Spanish, and who knows, Japanese. I don't know, whatever it may be, right? But I decided to learn French. And this is about not just my journey so far and the lessons that I've learned about French and why it might be a good idea for you even to consider learning a new language, but also the trials and tribulations involved and a few tips and hacks if you want to do it well. So this was the context. On Smarter with Sid, we look at the context first, then go to first principles, right? So let's look at first principles. I did a quick search on Google, and I understood that I kind of learn more from a visual or an auditory perspective. I looked at, l'Alliance Française, which, you have to go to a physical class and learn. But my schedule is such that I don't think that I'll be able to actually do that. Then I looked at learn French with Alexa, which was really interesting, because here's a lady who, speaks in a very funny English accent, but she's teaching French. And I might have made a YouTube short video about it a few weeks back. But, I just liked her. I liked her energy, and I liked the fact that I was going to learn from basics. So after a little bit of research, I decided to, make a choice and start learning with Alexa every day. And I started honing, up my French. Now, I think I am about 2 months into the habit of learning French. And here is what I have learned with Alexa, and here is what I've learned beyond Alexa. So firstly, what I thought would be useful is to get it out of the way very quickly and learn in, let's say, 10 to 15 minute installments, which are actually what those videos are about, which I found pretty useful. So I was waking up early in the morning and I was just spending 10 minutes while I was drinking a bottle of water maybe, or, doing something around those lines. And I decided to learn. So that was pretty useful. I had decided I'm not going to learn for an hour every day. Maybe you want to, it's your learning style. Maybe you want to learn late at night. For me, mornings work best, and absorption of that material happens best if it's lesser than 10 minutes. So I started doing that. And it was pretty useful because I was not being immediately judged for it. Nobody was judging me for, speaking in French. Hopefully I have other skills, so which get me, by in life. So I decided to, it was a relaxed kind of learning. And this is a very new experience. So this is the first learning I had. If you learn in a relaxed way, if there's not immediate pressure, it could go both ways. You might get lackadaisical, but if you retain your focus, which I could manage to do because of the 10-minute thing, it actually becomes a very enjoyable experience. The second thing that I actually figured out, and this was also because of my research on how to learn best. And one of the podcasts that I was listening to was the Andrew Huberman podcast. I think it's called the Huberman Lab podcast or something like that, in which he said that learning happens best if you learn something and then you work out immediately. So I decided to stack up my habits, and I decided to kind of learn French for 10 minutes and then kind of sandwich it between. So I used to do my Wim Hof meditation before, learn French after that, and then do a workout immediately afterwards. And I think that it does help. Of course, 2 months is too early to tell, but I tested myself on Duolingo recently as to how much French I can actually understand, and I seem to have passed their elementary level. And I don't think I would have done it if I hadn't learned enough French in these past 2 months. So it gave me a bit of a boost. In fact, I did it today, I'm not going to lie. And I think that a lot of that help was because of the fact that I was doing something to my brain in order to enhance my learning. So that's a real hack that you could use. And principle number 2. Principle number 3 was, when I was learning French, one of the things that I did notice was, it's a really interesting observation, and I'd like to kind of end with that. I think when you learn French, you become a French person. No, I'm not kidding you. I'm not saying suddenly you start acting all Frenchy and throwing airs here and there and, eating minimalistic meals. No, I'm not saying that. But I think every language emanates from a culture that it belongs to. Yeah. And that's very critical for us to know, because that culture itself, has brought out that language, which means that there are different neural networks that are encoded in our brain for that language. Now, I know I'm murdering Noam Chomsky over here when I'm talking of language and neural structures and the rest of it. But my practical experience was that when I was learning French, I could literally feel myself becoming a different person, thinking differently, and actually behaving differently at times. I caught myself, behaving differently. It's very subtle, so it's very difficult to explain this phenomenon weirdly. But I think you'll understand what I'm saying. Like, when you are talking in your mother tongue, you suddenly become a different person. When you're speaking in English, if you're comfortable with it, you become a different person. If you're speaking in English with an Indian accent like I am, and if you go to a new place, you become a different person. I think language fundamentally changes the way in which you are as a person. And I believe that there is a French Sid somewhere in my brain, right? And I'm accessing it every single day when I am actually learning French. So that is my third big important lesson for you. And maybe you might be able to access newer parts of your brain. And this is very well known. You learn a new language and you become more intelligent because you are utilizing neural networks or neural pathways in your head, which you haven't used before. I'm going one step further and saying maybe these neural pathways exist in a lot of French people, and you're learning their culture, you're learning the way they think, you're learning the way they innovate just through the way in which they speak the language. And this kind of brings me to moving ahead. Now, am I going to continue this? Of course, I'm going to continue. But I'm going to also supplement my learning with Alexa, with Duolingo, because I believe that that's a little more active. And with, learning French with Alexa can become a little passive. So I'm going to try and mix things up. And that I think is extremely important for learning. So I took a bit of a review and I decided to add this on and maybe make my 10 minutes 15 minutes. I don't think I'm going to go beyond 15 minutes, or maybe I'll alternate between Alexa and Duolingo, which seem to be the best ways for me, at least, to learn French. And I'll keep you posted. I'll keep you posted on how my stuff is. Maybe one of these podcasts, I'm going to just end up speaking in French. I do believe that learning is a continuous process, and we need to up our game, but in a way that is practical and in a way that helps immediately. For that, I have started a new thing, a new venture called Next Level Learning, wherein I've actually put up courses on content strategy masterclass and branding in a digital world. In case you're interested, do search for this, and I'm sure that you'll find Next Level Learning and Siddharth Deshmukh connected together. Do find out and tell me how those classes are. Priced very cheap at about $600 pop or something. 1 hour learning. There's no excuses I've kept for you. Well, now that I've finished my half a second commercial break, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Smarter With Sid. Many more to come from where this came from. And if you like this, do connect with me on LinkedIn and Instagram. I'm the traveling professor over there. And like and subscribe to this podcast. And hey, if you like a podcast like this, IVM's got a lot of wonderful stuff right there for you. On that happy note then, cheers.